It is well said by Tony Robbins that setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into visible. With that being said, good evening to one and all. Myself, Tanya, and I will be your host for this session. I extend my heartfelt welcome to the guest speaker for the day, Dr. Cynthia Winnie, and all the participants. Thank you for joining. So before we begin the session, let me share some instructions for the smooth sailing webinar. Number one, please mute the audio during the presentation and turn on video if possible. Number two, questions can be dropped in the chat and can be asked during the question answer session towards the end. Number three, feedback form will be shared towards the end of the webinar. And most importantly, e-certificates will be provided only on filling the feedback form. Now, I'll give you a brief introduction about the HigherEd and all its services. HigherEd for All is a career guidance and counseling platform with a team of certified counselors and educators. Our mission is to help you identify your strengths and interests to make a career that suits you. We offer educational counseling, career guidance, training, and other education-oriented services to leverage your skills and achieve career goals. We are committed to empower school students starting from grade 9, graduates, working professionals, and companies. We also provide assessments to escalate the relevant skills and knowledge you need to succeed. Now, talking about today's webinar on mastering the art of public speaking and presentation. This will help you to develop the skills and techniques necessary to have expertise in public speaking and presentation. Apart from your personality, it is your way of speaking which can help you to stand out. Public speaking is important because we can motivate others to go in the direction they wish to. We'll learn the essence of public speaking, methodology to become a proficient speaker, and personal barriers that can hinder your spoken skill development. It will also cover practical techniques and essential ingredients to become a good speaker. Now, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Cynthia Winnie, a distinguished academician and assistant professor of English at Kristu Jayanti College, Bengaluru. Dr. Cynthia's expertise lies in subaltern studies, Native American literature, and resistance literature. Her contributions to literary studies are noteworthy, and she has published research articles in several journals. In addition to her outstanding academic achievements, she has exceptional communication skills, leadership abilities, and talent for organizing and executing projects that have helped her excel as an educator. With her diverse skill set, academic background, and impressive accomplishments, we are thrilled to have Dr. Cynthia Winnie as our chief guest for today's session. So without any further ado, I invite Dr. Cynthia to please take over the session and share her valuable insights with us. Ma'am, may I now request you to please take over the session.
Thank you. So I'll just start by saying that this particular talk I'm going to deliver is not like a formal session, but rather I want the audience to answer the questions that I'm asking. So it's an interesting topic, actually, the mastering the art of public speaking and presentation. So what is the so-called the mastering the art of public speaking? So before that, I'll just tell you what are the key things that is necessary whenever you deliver a talk in front of any kind of an audience. So before I've just included a slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. So before proceeding into all the details, I thought I'll just give you some images and ask the audience if they know who they are. So let's start with the first one. to the top left corner is, can you recognize who the person is? You can just type in the chat box if possible, or you can just unmute yourself and you can say. Okay, so I've just included a few famous people, who are known for delivering any kind of speech, who can actually influence a lot of audience, a mass audience. First one towards the left is actually Jay Shetty. He's actually very famous, popular right now with the current people, that is youngsters. Why? Because his speech, the way he speaks, he draws inspiration from the life experiences, and it rings with truth. And also, the lessons and whatever the talk or whatever the point that he wants to deliver to the audience, they're actually self-learned, actually hard-learned, I would say. It's from his own struggles or through his friends' struggles or something that he heard from outside. So he uses his own experiences or the experience of the people known. He uses that to deliver his own speech to the audience. So how is he actually delivering? Is that's the matter. So whenever you speak to people, there are a lot of gestures the way you speak to people. So one main thing is that if you're just standing, preferably standing, and when you're speaking to the audience, sometimes the person who is speaking uses a lot of hand gestures. Yes, or they use the facial expressions to deliver voice modulation. So these are the things they use whenever they deliver a talk. So these people, they use all these traits to grab the attention of the audience, influence them, and motivate them towards the points or whatever things that they wanted to say. So towards the right corner, very famous person, that is Hitler. Hitler, when it comes to Hitler, you all know the story of Hitler, but you know that he actually influenced a lot of people, and he's an orator. He actually is mainly known for his voice modulation, powerful voice modulation. So whenever it comes to presentation, you have to use your voice modulation. That is, you go high, you go low, you just speak in a very different way, and body language as well. And because this person, this Hitler, is somebody who actually believed that when you speak orally to people, and when you look at them, when you speak orally, that is when the almost 90% of the message is conveyed to the audience. And his speeches actually, they often stood out because he made the audience believe that to all the questions they have, he's got the answers. So he actually made the audience believe that he's got the answers to all the questions, all the queries that they have. So it's something, a make-believe thing that he actually, it's actually a manipulation, I would say. You just, it's a psychological thing. You just letting the audience know that he's somebody whom you can trust, and he's somebody who's got a solution. So, whenever he speaks, he sees to that the points that he's saying, the audience, he just wants them to believe them. So his speeches, whenever he speaks with honesty, and he speaks as if he is actually brave enough, and he actually motivates them in a very in a different way, inspiring way. And the bottom left corner she's my favorite, I would say. She's Oprah Winfrey, and she when it comes to her, a lot of people, they actually get this influence from her because she always shares her visions to the audience, and it's a way of making them aware of the goal in a picture, in one single picture. And she always talks about relevant things, and she repeats the subject that she's talking about. And whenever she speaks with emotion. So these are the things, when you speak, the audience will actually listen to you. And also, she actually, her one of the main trait is that she thanks the audience. She thanks for listening to them. She thanks for coming there, and she thanks for listening, and also responding. That is one way of, letting the audience know that you are there for them. Okay, you can trust the person. So gratitude is very important when you stand on the platform and when you speak to them. And then at the bottom, you have another important person is actually Martin Luther King Jr. He's also known for his effective communication. He always shares his vision with a lot of listeners or audience. And one of the key theme or key important point whenever it comes to his speech is that he repeats sentences quite often. He repeats his sentences. For example, let's take his famous speech that I have a dream, where certain words he keeps repeating. Why is he repeating? He's emphasizing. So when he emphasizes by repeating certain words, the audience will listen, and that will actually, stay in your mind for at least for quite a long period of time. So it's another way, of letting the audience know the importance or the key points whenever they go back home. Whenever after the end of the session, whenever they go back home, these are things they'll take. So if you emphasize by repeating certain words or sentences, uh, especially the keywords, they will remember forever. And when it comes to speech, there is a lot of clarity, there is a lot of authenticity and consistency, and for whatever the ideas is actually standing for. So these, I've just included like around 4 pictures of famous people who are actually known for this public speaking, and how is it they are very famous for influencing a lot of people. It can be through media, it can be a live audience, it can be recorded as well. Next slide, please. Okay. So from here on, I've just given certain points. So they are basic points, for you to remember, like what exactly is public speaking and what is that you're supposed to do while delivering a speech to an audience. First and foremost thing to remember is that nervousness is something that's common in people. Even a public speaker, when he's standing on stage, for a moment, he will have the nervousness, or it's okay to have this nervousness, but it's important to remember that you're not supposed to show that particular nervousness to the audience. It's okay to have this nervousness, and you should have the confidence in speaking. So before that, so what exactly is the so-called public speaking? It's generally delivering a talk on any topic. It can be it can range from literature, it can range from politics, it can go to wider topics. And when it comes to the audience, it can be for the school children, it can be for the college students, it can be for your own peers, it can be for your colleagues. So the audience also ranges. And this public speaking can be a live one when you just deliver directly to the audience. It can be a pre-recorded one as well. And why the main aim or the purpose of this particular public speaking, why is it public speaking is important nowadays? Because it teaches or it informs a lot of things to the public. And through speaking, you can actually persuade people into doing a lot of things. And also you can entertain the audience. So for entertaining is mainly, when you come, for example, you can take stand-up comedy as well. It's actually both informing as well as entertaining. Yes. So that is an example. So when you trace the origin of the so-called public speaking, from where did it start? You can say it started from ancient Greece. Record goes back there to ancient Greece. Why? Because, there were a lot of scholars and philosophers, they tried to give speeches as a part of the civic duties. As a citizen, they had to deliver certain talks. So from there, it started. So that's how the trace goes. And in today, because of the significance of this digitalizing, you have a lot of ways in presenting or a lot of ways in doing this public speaking. For example, you have this video conferencing, you have this multimedia presentations. You also have this non-traditional forms without the any technology used. You just go there in person. Even if it's a small mass, for example, even if it's a 10 or 15 people, you just stand there and you just speak. That is actually public speaking. So the public speaking, the audience matters a lot, and the content, the topic matters a lot. So when it comes to presentations, how is it you're presenting, or how is it you're giving this so-called public speaking? It is typically demonstrations. You can demonstrate certain things. You can use certain models to demonstrate, to give them as an example, live example. It can be a lecture where the audience just listen to you and you're just giving a lot of lessons to them. Or it can be a speech where you're trying to influence the audience, and they it's more like an interaction there. So can you scroll up a little bit, please? So the last point, what I've given here is that it's according to the research, they say 38%, when it comes to public speaking, like how is it going? 38% is actually your voice that is taking out this the so-called session. And 55% is actually the non-verbal communication, that is the body language. And the way you see, where you look, the connect with your audience by having eye contact. So that matters a lot. And when it comes to the content, you just see that's only 7%. So when I'm speaking as of now, I don't know how many of you actually are reading through the slides. Probably, I don't know how many of you are actually listening to my audio or voice modulation. I don't know how many of you are actually looking at me, speaking directly. Since it's an online one, we cannot have an eye contact, but still that takes the 55% when it comes to the body language. So moving on. So when it comes to public speaking, there are a few things. How is that you prepare? First thing is that you have to know your audience. Knowing your audience is the main thing, because so accordingly you will prepare. So you have to know whether this particular speech that you're delivering, the talk that you're delivering, whether it's for the kids, whether it's for the age group between 10 to 20, or whether it's an adult. So accordingly, you will prepare the drafts. So when it comes to planning, it's nothing but structuring your document, or the entire document. You either write it down, or either you put your PPT or PowerPoint presentation, and you just plan like how is it you want things to be delivered. So when it comes to the content, so content takes a lot of things, because the content, if at all if you're presenting using a PPT, you can use a content on the sides. You can give some images, and you can just show them this is how things are. If at all if you're not having any PPTs, the content that you deliver, you can actually by heart. You can do by memorizing certain things, or you can use a notebook in your hand or small paper just to write on keywords, just in case if you want to say certain things to people, and if you're not remembering. So in that case, you can use. So the content is very important, because content goes according to the audience, because that's how you prepare. Practicing. So practicing is, they say practice makes things perfect. But however, I would say practice will not make everything perfect. Sometimes as you speak in front of the public, even after practicing for quite a long period of time, you still make mistakes, and it's fine making mistakes. You just have to remember that it's fine making mistakes. People do. That's who we are. So practicing, it's okay to practice. So you practice as much as you can. You just have to use a voice modulation to see, you can just stand in front of the mirror to see like how you're actually delivering this particular talk. And if you need to change the way you're actually speaking, the body language, you can just, by practicing, you will know where you have to change. And the last one is actually delivering. So when it comes to delivering, it's all about using the various methods in delivering the content that you actually prepare for the particular audience. So it's that in another slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So I've just given the must-have traits that whenever it comes to public speaking. One is the confidence. So only if you have the so-called confidence in speaking, you give an assurance to the audience. They'll start believing in you. What are the words that's coming from your mouth? So like I told you in the very beginning, nervousness, it's fine to have nervousness, because you will have, at any age, even if you're 20 or 50, at any age when you're delivering a talk, even after delivering 20, 30 talks, you still have that nervousness, a moment of nervousness. But all you have to do is conceal them. Okay, you just have to speak to them with confidence. So that will, give them the confidence in listening to the talk that you're actually giving. The next one, that is enthusiasm and passion together, that will go. Enthusiasm is when you're delivering the particular speech, you have to show that you actually, the content that you've prepared, the subject or the theme that you're actually talking about, you have to speak with enthusiasm. So it shows that you're interested in speaking that particular topic. And it will tell the audience that you're somebody actually who knows the content, and you're somebody who actually loves the particular topic that you're actually talking about. And then the passion. So passion, again, like I said, it goes with the enthusiasm. The passion is the love that you show for the subject. So when you speak with enthusiasm, it naturally tells them that you're passionate about the subject that you're actually talking about. And the next one is be concise. That is, for example, just an example, if it's a 30-minute talk that you're delivering, see to that you're actually fixed to that particular timing that you're actually talking. And if you elaborate on certain things for quite a long period of time, and the audience, we know that it's actually a fact that the audience will feel sleepy if we speak a lot. And that goes for anyone. They are the barriers actually. So when you are concise with the words, with the content that you're actually delivering, be short and crisp so that the audience will actually listen to you. And then this is actually a main thing, that is ability to read the room. That is when you know the audience is actually sleeping. This is actually this comes whenever it's a live speaking, that is in front of the audience, just standing there, you can see the audience, and whenever you're speaking, you make the eye contact with the people, right? So from the left to right, as you just walk around the stage, when you look at the audience, you will know whether they are interested, whether they are not interested. So you will have an idea. You should have the ability to read the entire room. So where the people are, the audience is seated, and how is it they're seated, whether they're sleepy, whether they're listening. So accordingly, you can actually use a voice modulation. Accordingly, you can actually, make them, listen to the content that you're actually delivering. And the next one is actually the self-awareness. Self-awareness is actually an important trait. Why? Because when you prepare the content and when you practice, you will know where you're going wrong, and you know that there are certain things that you're actually repeating. For example, if you're using non-lexical verbs quite often, you know that you're not supposed to use that. So when you practice in front of the mirror, so if you're using a lot of lexical, it's okay to use one or two, but then a lot is too much, because that the audience will know that you're using a lot of non-lexical verbs like sounds, or like the voice that you actually make. So you being aware of your own the limitness, I would say. So that will help you to improve yourself whenever you're doing a public speaking. And next is the authenticity. So when it comes to a topic, like for example, let's take a topic on literature, or a topic on some political issue that you're addressing the public, and how much are you delivering, how much originality is there in that. So you cannot just cook up some stories from anywhere, and you cannot just like that deliver a talk. You have to give certain proofs, so people will know these are the things that has actually been out there, so they will actually trust you. The authenticity is very important. And adaptability is nothing but whenever you're speaking, suddenly if you've forgotten certain words, and you just have to find an alternative. You just adapt to the particular situation that you are actually put. So sometimes they'll just ask you to deliver a talk within 5 minutes because the time is running out. So you should know how to adjust accordingly. So that is the adaptability. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay. So I've just mentioned here the modes of delivery. So how, like I told you, one of the previous slide, like how is the fifth point, that's how is it the delivery is done. One is the impromptu. That is, without any preparation. There is, on spot, if you're speaking on any particular topic, if at all, if you want to speak on certain topic, and if you're put in that particular position, how is it you're delivering? That is the impromptu one. This extemporaneous is actually nothing but you will have some keynotes, small notes you will have in your hand, probably just the keywords. So using the keywords, you are actually developing some kind of a talk and some kind of a dialogue, and you're just trying to convey that message to the audience. So the difference between this first and the second is nothing but first is completely unprepared, whereas the second one, you will have some keynotes or keywords you use, and with the keywords you actually explain or elaborate on that. That is the impromptu and extemporaneous. The third one is actually memorized. So another method of delivering a talk is actually memorized. That is, you actually plan ahead. Whenever you're planning your script, or whenever you plan on this particular topic, you read a lot. You have to read a lot, and you do read a lot, and you memorize certain keywords, and you just don't need anything in your hand. So whatever that you remember, so it can be a life experience as well. It can be something you read through internet. So all these things, by remembering, you're just delivering the exact thing to the audience. That is memorized. The last one is actually manuscript. So this manuscript is nothing but using the papers where you've written down all the plans. You can just jot it down just like that. And you can actually using quotes also. Some people, they want to deliver a talk using certain quotes. So if at all, if they're using a lot of quotes, and if they don't want to miss a single word from it, they can just write it down and read from the manuscript. So there are a lot of things that are there. Certain speeches, it's better to write and deliver just like that by reading the manuscript. It's okay to read on certain things, certain occasions. So these are the 4 modes of delivery when it comes to public speaking. Next slide, please. Okay. So the word is missing anyway. The tips to perfect your public speaking. So first thing is that maintaining eye contact. This again, it goes with the you standing there in person with the audience. So you have to maintain an eye contact. It's there are so many people, speakers that I've seen whom actually, when they look at the audience, it can be a classroom as well. As you teach in front of the classroom, that is, I wouldn't say that's a public speaking, but still, you're just standing there, you're delivering a talk. There are people, because of nervousness, instead of looking at the audience, instead of looking at the students, they just look at the wall that is behind. Because they're trying to remember, it's a memory thing. They're trying to remember, so they just look at the wall and they're just trying to recollect the points. It's one thing that you should actually avoid doing it, because as you look at the people on the wall at the back or something at the back, the students, you will not know what the audience is actually doing. So like I told you one of this slide, the ability to know the audience, like how they are, it's very important. So it's important to maintain an eye contact with the person. So when you look at the person knows that you're actually, you're talking to that particular person. It's a psychological thing again. And the next one is actually expressive hand and body gestures. Like I told you, it takes around 55% when it comes to public speaking. So whenever you deliver a talk, you're supposed to move around, and your hand gesture, your body gesture is very important. For example, if I'm just telling you there are two things in this public speaking, two things or two tips in public speaking, rather than telling directly like that, I can just say like there are two things in public speaking. So when you show that, even if they're not listening, they remember my hand gesture. So when I was looking at one of the TED Talks, there's one person who actually gave a few things to be remembered whenever, or to perfect whenever it comes to public speaking. He was actually mentioning, there's a wonderful point that you actually mentioned. As you walk around the stage talking to an audience, how is it you actually get the audience's attention? So when you're welcoming an audience, you have to welcome with the hands open. You can just say, welcome to this particular topic. I would like to talk on this. For example, let's take native American, just saying. So when you're saying like that, the audience will actually listen to you and see, please remember that you have to come forward as you speak. When you walk back or when you just refrain, and whenever you're speaking, you're just having some kind of a distress with an audience. You're actually creating a distress with an audience. But when you come forward, it's like you going to the audience, you're actually trying to have a meetup with an audience and you're speaking. Because it's a stage thing, you have to actually walk around. Yes. And this expressive hand gestures and body gestures, that is what people remember more than the content. And next is actually having a kind of facial expression. For example, it's a smile. So when you're speaking to the audience, it's very important that you actually smile at the audience. Not just keep smiling all the time, but then I would say just have a smile when you look at when you're delivering some particular topic, and if the audience is responding to you, it's important that you actually keep a kind face rather than keeping very tensed, because they will feel tensed. And walking around again, it falls for the live public speaking. That is, when you're standing on stage, if there's the podium, if there's a mic given to you, and if you're not able to move around because of the podium, then it's fine. But if you have the wireless, you can just walk around, because walking around, it actually grabs the attention of the audience as you walk around. But see to that you don't walk around too much. It's not like you're doing a walking on the stage. So when you're walking around, see to that you're actually looking at the audience and you're actually walking around. You don't turn back or show your back to the audience. That is something that you should avoid. And next is actually encourage participation. So like I told you one of the slides, as you speak to the audience, it's natural, after some time that they actually tend to fall asleep. So when you actually ask a question to the audience, it keeps them awake. It keeps them alert. They will listen to the speech that you're actually trying to deliver. And you just ask a question to the audience. You just ask them to respond to. You can actually, ask by pointing a finger at one particular person. You can ask the person. When you do that, actually, one is that it will create some kind of an alertness in others who are listening. The other thing is that what the main purpose of this public speaking is that you want them to take home the words that you're saying, whatever the messages you're trying to convey. So encouraging participation will make them remember the things that actually you spoke to those people. And next is having a warm tone in the voice. So the voice modulation, like I told you, is very important. Having a warm tone is nothing but you actually keeping it relaxed. Okay, and you're just using a tension-free voice rather than using a voice where um, somewhere you're not clear, somewhere you just because of your some personal issues, if at all, because those are the barriers you have because of personal issues or because of something that happened few minutes more, even few minutes back. It can change your mood, and if your mood is changed, and if that's shown in whenever you're delivering your talk, your audience will know. So it's very important to keep a warm tone whenever you're delivering a talk, and relaxed disposition. You don't have to show them that you're actually tensed. You just, whenever you walk around, whenever you talk to them, you let them know that you are relaxed so that they can be relaxed and they can listen to the entire speech that you're actually delivering. And next is actually the slow speech rate. This is important. Why? Because when you are delivering a particular topic, see to that you are using some kind of a speech rate. Sometimes you can actually increase the speech rate, sometimes you can decrease the speech rate, because as you decrease and when you low down your voice, the audience will listen to you more. For example, if I'm just telling, please listen to me, I'm going to say something very important. When you say something like this, that grabs the attention of those audience. Even if they were not listening to the previous one, now they will start listening. So the speech rate, the voice modulation, it actually grabs attention. And when it comes to brevity, it's the main thing is about your the authenticity, including the clarity. The clarity is something, whenever you speak, you see that the main points that you're trying to deliver, at least that is clear enough. Next slide, please. Okay. So when you're just standing on stage, when you're just welcoming the audience for the particular topic that you're going to speak, you're just introducing yourself, and then when you move on to the next one, that when you're starting the speech, rather than going to the topic directly, it's better you start with asking some like intriguing question. It's when you ask such questions, the audience will be eager to know like what is it all about. So you can actually use this method. You can start with asking them a question, and then slowly or gradually you can just go into the topic. So then they will know, because for some reason it is said that the question whenever you ask, there are people who will not know the answer. So that will make them curious to know what is it you're going to say ahead. So that is the first one. And next is actually a photo story. So this you can include it. You don't have to include, but it's okay. It's if you include it, it will be more interesting, because the visuals are more important when it comes to presenting. So you can just show some pictures of whatever the talk that you're actually delivering. So you can just ask the audience, you can ask them with a question using this picture. You can ask them who they are, or like, what is the story entire about? Or you can show the picture and you can deliver a particular story. You can, for example, if you're talking about Mahatma Gandhi, it's just an example. And you can show around 5 pictures to let them know these are the things, this is how he was undergoing certain things. And more than telling them your word, they'll remember the pictures. So that's important to have a photo story in that. And involving the audience, impromptu, that is having a game or a riddle. So this you can use in between. Rather than starting with a game or a riddle, you can actually use in between, so that you're just making the audience involved in this particular session. Because like I told you, if they're not, for a certain amount of time, they'll lose their interest. So in order to gain the interest back, you can use certain riddles. So at that time, they'll respond to you. And next one is actually using powerful quotes. You can actually use a good quote that is said by a very famous person. And whenever you're using a quote, please remember that audience should know about that particular person. Else, if I just give you about somebody, and if you don't know who the person is, you will not have interest in knowing who this particular person and why is it he's given a quote. But if if the audience doesn't know the person, the quote has to be very powerful enough. So that will take a message. And next is humor. So when you deliver a talk for a certain period of time, having some kind of a joke, delivering some kind of a humor thing in between, this just makes the entire audience live enough. So you can just use one of this try to capture the audience's attention. Next slide, please. Okay. So when it comes to public speaking, there are people who actually use this PPT or PowerPoint presentation. So here the word presentation I've used in the act of present. There are 2 things. When it comes to presentation, one is the PPT or PowerPoint presentation. The main thing is that the act of presenting the topic that you're actually trying to deliver. How is it you're delivering? How is it you're presenting the particular topic? So there are two things, to master the skill of this so-called public speaking. There are two things that is needed, required. That is, one is the language. The two is the content. Language is very important because, if you know the language, you will naturally you will have the confidence. If you don't know the language, you will have some kind of fear because, as you stand on stage when you're trying to deliver some kind of a topic, in your consciousness, there'll be a thought going on. What if I make a mistake? What if I just stutter? What if I, pronounce it wrong? It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes because we are not the native speakers of English. So it's okay to do that. Also, if you're giving a talk to a region where you belong, you can actually in between use your own regional language because it's always used. It's okay to use bilingual whenever you're doing a presenting, a small kind of a presentation, not only the formal one, but if it's an informal one, you can use. And the content. So if you're going to talk about one particular topic, you cannot just come and stand there and speak whatever that you know. You're supposed to do a background study. You're supposed to know the content. If you know the content, you can actually speak for a longer period of time. But then if you don't know the content, you're just going to drag something and people are going to lose interest. So these are the two main things that is important. That is language as well as having a content. The language will help you to have the confidence in speaking, and the content will, with all the messages you want to convey, the contents, you should have some good content in your hand. So before the presentation, what are the things you'll be requiring? One is the preparation. So before standing and presenting, probably a week prior or something, you have to start your preparation. And whenever you prepare, you have to frame your ideas properly. You see to that you structure them properly. There should be a sequence. So structure them properly. And after structuring them, write it down. You can write it down, or you can just type it down. And after that, you can just re-edit. You have to read it out and re-edit so that you will know like where you have to make all the changes. Then try reading it out loud. See what are the speech that you're trying to. This reading it out loud mainly falls for the manuscript reading. One of the methods of reading, that is a manuscript reading. Whenever you're doing a manuscript reading, the reading out loud and editing will fall. And next is actually tools. That is, what are the tools you're actually going to use whenever you're going to deliver your presentation? Are you going to use some kind of a technology, probably a PowerPoint presentation to grab the audience's attention? And the next one is actually practice. So before presentation, it's very important that you practice at least once. Is very important, but then it's okay at least for you to do at least 3 times to know that where you're going wrong. At least you'll remember what's there in the next slide. So practice is very important before the presentation. Next slide, please. Okay. So points to, I don't know why the words are actually missing there. Okay, points to be remembered. I think it went back of that particular slide. The points to be remembered are, before, as you stand on stage, when you start, you have to find a hook. What is finding a hook? How is it you're going to grab the audience's attention is very important. So you can use a question, you can use brainstorming, you can use anything, and to have the good start. And the next one is stay on the point. It's very important that as you speak on one particular topic, you're not supposed to deviate from the topic. You want to stay on the point. You can tell stories from your own life experiences, but then it shouldn't deviate completely. And do not repeat. So this happens when you don't have enough content. When you don't have enough content, you keep repeating the same points over and over again. You just use the same instances over and over again. And then the attitude. This is one of the important traits. So as you stand and as you deliver a speech to an audience, the attitude is very important. So it's very important to maintain that kind face, because if you show a negative kind of an attitude, the audience will not like it. The audience will not listen to it. But then if you show a positive attitude towards the audience, as you keep smiling, you actually indirectly develop some kind of a relationship with the audience. This relationship is nothing but it happens especially when you make an eye contact. So this attitude is very important. And next is actually don't use any non-lexical fillers. So you're not supposed to use any non-lexical fillers, but you can use at certain times. But if at all, if you use too much of non-lexical fillers like sound, or you can use like any kind of sounds, that what a non-lexical fill is, right? So if you're going to use that too much, that people will remember that and they will not listen to the content. And next is keep everything simple. So it's important to keep the contents that you're going to deliver as simple as possible. Don't make it too complicated. And you cannot use some big words, because audience may not know the meaning of those words. So try to keep all those words as simple as possible. Use proper sentences and use visuals in your presentation. If you're going to use PPTs, it's very important that you put at least 1 or 2 pictures in PPT so people remember what you're trying to talk about. And the last one is actually always have a backup plan. So at times, there'll be some issue happening with the PowerPoint presentation, or sometimes you will not remember what you want to say. So if you forget certain things, you can use you should have a backup plan. You can talk about some other instances. At that time, there are people who actually cook up a story. It's okay to cook up a story, but then it should be relevant to the topic we're actually talking about. If the message is conveyed properly, then it's fine to have a good a backup plan made. Yeah. So tips for a good PowerPoint. So I've just on the side, I've just given 2 small words. Can you read me now? And can you read me now? I was hoping the audience can actually respond, but still. See, the first one, if you see, it's a bit lighter, but it is visible. I'm not saying that it is not visible. It is visible, but we just prefer the next one. So, these are the things you should have in a PowerPoint, that is, preferring something, the second one, that rather than going to the first one. So having a proper background slides is very important. You should have a contrast colors. And you can use animations. That depends on the topic that you're actually talking about. Using animations will actually make the PowerPoint more effective. And the choice of words. So you can use certain good choice of words. You can actually use words that is said by somebody else, and you can just quote them down in the PPT as well. And the word count, and that is nothing but, in a PPT, if you see, you're not supposed to use big sentences. There are people who actually use 3-4 points that runs for sentences, like 2 or 3 sentences. You're not supposed to use that. See that you use minimal number of words in one particular slide. Yeah, and you can use on the right hand side or left hand side one particular image that has relevance to the point that you're actually talking about. So you can use keywords rather than using sentences. Kindly use keywords. And in a PPT, is very important, to know that when you're using certain sentences, and if those sentences are not complete, you're just using a keyword, please avoid having periods there. So if you use periods in a sentences which is not a full sentence, then it's actually wrong to use such things. So you have to see the periods, you have to see how good the PPT is, you have to see the colored image, and please see that you stick to 3 colors maximum, not more than that. If you use too much of colors, it's very it's distracting. So people actually, they will not know which one to follow. So keep the slides minimal as possible. I think, oh yeah. So that's it. So when this is a question that I want to ask, that is mastering the art of public speaking. So the mastering here, where does it stand? It's nothing but, you practice. It's a self thing. You just by learning, probably you can learn it from some other shows. You can just learn from some YouTube to see like how they're presenting. But then in the end, it's actually you who's going to present it. So you have to master it all by yourself. So practice is the only thing that actually makes you the master of the public speaking. I'd like to conclude with that point. Yes, thank you.
So now the session is open for the questions. If any of the participants have any queries regarding the same topic, they can send it in the chat box or can unmute themselves and speak the question. Ma'am, if you don't mind, can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Yes, ma'am. So you rightly said that practice is just not something that can make you a good speaker, because
yes,
whenever you start speaking, you are surely going to forget something or fumble.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah. So what can be done? Because it is practically being seen. It is my personal experience that practice is going to overpower your, nervousness. So what technique can be done to minimize the problems when you start speaking in the front of a, mass audience?
Okay. So like I told you, sometimes they say practice is what makes a man perfect. But then I told you the practice is not the only thing that makes a man perfect. Because when you go there and when you speak, obviously you'll make a mistake, some kind of a pronunciation mistake or something. Sometimes you just forget the point that you want to say. I just want to tell the people that it's okay to make mistakes. Okay, first thing, and if at all if you make mistakes, you rectify on stage immediately. And because if just with a small huge smile, and if you just change the point that you are trying to say, the audience will know that it's okay to make mistakes. In that way, you're actually conveying up one main message apart from the topic that you're talking about, is that when in life, whenever you make mistakes, certain mistakes, it's okay to make. Okay, you can just rectify from that. So I would say practicing will obviously it will perfect you to a certain extent, but on stage, if you make a mistake, you can't do anything, but then you have to rectify that. You just smile it away, it's fine. And then you just convey. Or that's why I told you, if you're going to forget certain things, you should have a backup plan. So always have a backup plan. It's fine.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. So I'll give another call for the questions.
Thank you.
Yes, and before that, I'd like to thank Dr. Cynthia once again.
Thank you,
So
sir.
the insights that you provided were really helpful, and I myself have been in these kind of situations so many times, and I've wondered how to overcome all these things. But every time we go and try to present ourselves, we forget all these things. Okay, so it just came in as a reminder to go through all these steps and to improve my presentation skills. Thank you, thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
I couldn't see any questions. So I would like to thank our guest speaker,
Yes.
Dr. Cynthia Winnie. And I'm sure that all the participants would benefit from the valuable inputs that you have shared with us today. So I, being from the background of communication, could truly understand and relate the points that you have taken into consideration, the importance of nonverbal communication and the rules that we should follow, the must-have traits. And I truly agree with them. Thank you so much for giving so much information to us. And thanks to all the participants for your feedbacks. And before concluding today's session, I remind you all to please fill the feedback form through the link provided in the chat box, hoping that the same enthusiasm and support will be there in the future events held by HigherEd for All. Till then, thank you so much. Keep learning and good night.